Do you ever feel like your instinct or some sense of deep knowing is giving you information that your rational mind is telling you that you should ignore because it's wrong? Or perhaps you've been told by a partner, friend, or a family member that you're not rational enough, that your logical mind needs to be used more. In fact, we're often reminded that we should be more logical, that we should follow whatever the rational brain tells us to do. Yet, from my personal and clinical experience, I've found that there's vast power in following that sense of intuition, that deep knowing that is a natural part of who we are. And today, I'm joined by an educator, psychologist, and author who will help walk us through that beautiful journey of coming to honor and understand that sense of deep knowing that sometimes seems to come from beyond us. Today, we'll focus on this listener's real-life question. My partner and I constantly battle over what he calls my lack of rational judgment. He's a numbers guy, and I'm more of a creative gut instinct person. He gets really upset when I make choices, most of them are very good, that aren't based on spreadsheets and his type of logic. You're a psychologist, so I hope you can give me information and insights on how to get him to honor my less rational but effective approach. And with that question as the focus of today's episode, I'm Dr. Carla Marie Manley. And this is Imperfect Love. Please note that today's episode may contain sensitive information. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Imperfect Love with Dr. Carla Marie Manley, psychologist, author, and relationship expert. I'm here to help unravel mysteries and misconceptions about love, relationships, and mental health issues, plus everything in between. Love is complicated, people are imperfect, and relationships surely can be tough. Together, we'll navigate this messy, imperfect space of real life. Today, I am joined by a wonderful special guest, Dr. Kim Hermanson. Dr. Hermanson will be sharing her expertise as a professor, author, psychologist, and individual whose secret power is opening the spaces of higher knowing that can't be opened through the cognitive processes of the linear mind. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Hermanson. It's such a pleasure to be with you today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I love the topic too. So,
we will have great fun. Before we launch into the question of the day, could you tell our listeners just a little bit about what makes you you?
Oh my gosh. I would say nonlinear. Everything is always nonlinear. I've gotten to the point where sometimes I have to just not say my next step because it's not going to make sense to anybody. Yeah, just a very non-ordinary life, honestly. I grew up very normal, in middle of the country in Iowa, and very conservative family. So super traditional conservative upbringing, but as just a series of life events just kind of takes me in crazy directions. The first thing that happened, I was a computer scientist. Actually, I was in the artificial intelligence field back in the 1980s, believe it or not. Yeah, back in the day when it was still expert systems. So I was a computer scientist doing AI work in the 1980s, and then I was in a head-on collision on the highway and broke my back, broke T12, displaced my spinal cord by 40 degrees. It was kind of like I felt like I was like on one track in life. Like if you think about tracks, like a tractor in a field, and then all of a sudden with that car accident, I got taken out of that track and put in a completely different track in life. And it was such a dramatic. I was given less than 5% chance of walking again. I was airlifted to the Mayo Clinic. Yeah, I have rods in my back. So it was really a major turning point, and it gave me time to pause and reflect. And what I realized was that I really was passionate about learning, not computer science. And I was very disappointed in AI back in the 80s. And that I wanted to pursue learning. And that question of how do we learn in life, how do we really learn, has just kind of given me a very non-ordinary life and magical life, just mystical things happening, and just to keep pursuing that question. So that's a little bit about my background and how I'm here.
Absolutely fabulous. And for our listeners who might not know what you mean by a nonlinear way of thinking or a nonlinear life, which really also comports with the listener's question of the day. Sounds like this individual is not a linear thinker, or in the way that, spreadsheets and Excel sheets might have us be. Would you explain what you personally mean by that?
Yeah. Well, the way I think about this question is we have two hemispheres. We have a left hemisphere and we have a right hemisphere. And the left hemisphere wants safety and security and the known. It wants control. And so that sense of control and having things make sense is where it's happy. It's its happy place. But then there's this other part of us, the creative part of us, the nonlinear part of us, that doesn't like the tracks. It wants freedom. It wants expansiveness. It wants to create. It wants to see possibilities. It wants, things that it doesn't even know is out there, but it can be surprised by. So that's the part of my life that has had more of the bigger voice. It's had a bigger voice in my life. And that's what I would call nonlinear, that it doesn't, and this was in your example too, that the choices and the decisions don't often make sense. Like the track, as I said, that example of the tractor in the field, given that I grew up in Iowa in a farming family, the tractor in the field is on a track and it likes that track. It's very happy with that track. But then there's a big field, like what's in the big field? And those possibilities really show up when we're open and when we're not in that place of control. So.
Thank you for that absolutely exquisite explanation. And I so agree with you we want that left brain, I agree. It wants the predictability. It wants the safety. It wants the security. It wants the known. And we're often raised in families that really want us to follow that path, that linear path, the tractor path, the train path, whatever it is that they see. And generally they're trying to help us and keep us safe. Yet that place, and this again comports with the listener's question, which is, how can I get a partner? It sounds like this individual already values this part of themselves. And how can that individual get a partner, or maybe other people beyond that partnership, to value in our highly left brain world? It's us to dot every I, cross every T, get into that space, which you and I have come to know of, that it's a combination of gut instinct. To me, this is just my way.
Yeah.
I combine gut instinct, left brain, heart, and something beyond me. And I let all of those pieces weigh in. Even if it doesn't pencil out, whatever it is, make sense. Sometimes that knowing from inside that is pulling you seems to help you get over it not making sense to even yourself or other people. Am I making sense?
Yeah. What's interesting though is like when we're in the process of it, it can be hard to demonstrate why we're doing something, right? And so that's the part that's hard. Thinking about the person with the husband or the partner, it's really like, can I have space to be, even though I'm very different from you? I don't know that and that's what I see when I work with clients and we're looking at marriages. It's like two people in a solid marriage they show up very differently. Like there is not like some sort of interconnection thing. They show up as two distinct people, very different. And they're just walking this path side by side. And so there's just a space thing, I think, that's very important here as far as like, and the other thing is like, I work in the creative field. I work with creatives, and many of my clients have been working on projects for 20 years. And so they're spending 20 years doing something that's non-ordinary, that they're following an inner vision, and they don't have proof of the outside world. And creative work anyway is, it's like the world hasn't seen it before, often doesn't value it. So they're up against why am I doing this all the time? If that makes sense. But there's this call to follow the vision, to follow the pulse, to follow what's real, to follow what feels alive, even though it's hard to explain it to other people. It's hard to, how do you defend it if it doesn't fit into a box? So
you're making me think of Einstein, who really valued the power of the imagination, and he wasn't able to prove it at first, but now we have, all of the mathematics, all of the left brain stuff behind what he envisioned. And there are countless stories of that in life and in our own realm, as human beings living the day to day. I believe it's so important for us to come into contact with every day, not just that left brain, but the right brain. Because if we only do, I think of back when I entered my doctoral program, and if I had put it down on paper, what was ahead of me, the cost, the commitment, everything I had pulled,
right.
all of the right, in air quotes, the right directions, that never
wouldn't have done it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It would have never penciled out on anybody's spreadsheet, even my own.
Yeah.
Yet I distinctly recall the first day I said, I was looking at different schools and ones that would work and allow me to pursue a day job while also going to school. And I remember setting foot on the campus, and something led me there. So I'd never, and I think this is it. And the cost was huge and all of these impediments. Yet I used my gut instinct. Plus I had beautiful support around me of people who were emotionally supportive, and was able to defy naysayers as well as any naysaying in my own mind, and follow the path that I was destined to be on, one that's given me so much joy and helped me help others. And I think that that's an example. And your crash, I'm very, very sorry that happened to you. But in the end, it sounds like it helped you get off train or tractor, this tractor set, and be launched into this world that has inspired you and enlivened you.
Yeah, and has possibility to it. That's something I was thinking of when you were talking about the woman and her partner, or whoever the person might be, that one thing they could say is that this is going to give me a bigger life, because we want that bigger, what you just said about your dissertation, we want the bigger life, right? And we live once. We only have one life. We want the fullest life that is available to each of us. And we get that by sort of opening ourselves up to getting out of that train track, even though it's scary. And we can go back to the train track, but yeah, it's a balance. I mean, astrologically, I'm a Taurus, and I think Taurus is really like safety. So yeah, I kind of have the push-pull inside myself as well.
I'm not a Taurus. I think I have a lot of fire in my sign. No surprise there. But I think it's so important for each of us to realize that even if we're going to, as the husband is in this situation, he wants everything to pencil out. And we tend to, a big part of us, atavistically, likes that safety and security. Yet the curious thing is, sometimes I was working with a client yesterday, and they were talking about someone they know who has, quote unquote, all the money in the world, and they don't feel safe. Feel very unsafe, and they keep working. They don't have to, and constantly throwing money because they could have $5 bazillion and it wouldn't make them feel safe. So some of this safety that we think we get from this left brain mentality, having this much in the bank account, not that we don't want to have financial safety, we want to have enough. But if that's our focus, then we are forgetting all the beauty, as you keep saying. I love how you keep using the word possibility. Because when we take risks. Part of me wants to say calculated risks, but then I'm engaging the left brain again. But a wise risk, an opening. And the other piece I noticed about this listener's question is they said very clearly, most of my choices work out very well. They mostly have really good outcomes. And I think that even someone who goes with left brain all the time, they're going to have not 100% good outcomes. Even logic is flawed at times. So I really would encourage you, if you don't mind, you have 17 steps that help us create more of a healthy relationship with this beautiful, nonlinear, creative mind. Would you share some of that with us today?
Sure. Yeah. And I just want to say one thing about what you just said. And I think the difficulty is that we want to measure things, right? So we're having to trust, like just your example of the dissertation PhD program, we're having to trust in something that we can't measure because we don't know. And so we have to trust in the unknown. And that is understandably can be challenging. Yeah. Let's see, 17 steps. So I work with metaphor. I work with the language of the right hemisphere. And so that's the biggest one that I could do a little example of here for the listeners. An opening space, huge, right? So we want a sense of like spaciousness. Like yesterday I was working with a client and what showed up, her sister is coming to visit next week and her sister is extremely extroverted and the image that showed up was a circus, just really noisy, too much, like just too much energy, too much. And the image that my client got was a very soft, gentle cloud. And the two sides were polar opposites, right? So she's in this very quiet, soft, gentle space, and she's actually been sick and she needs to be in that space. Her sister is coming to visit, doesn't visit very often. They're going to be sharing a hotel room and, be together a lot. And she has a very different energy. Like, we have two polar opposites. And so what showed up is a third space, the space of resolution, the field image was a rainbow, and just kind of when I say opening up space, we're just, rather than me. So the first thing our minds want to do is try to see how the cloud can work with the circus. And so the first thing she said was, how, I'm going to be able to hold the circus. And I'm like, well, I don't think this cloud wants to hold the circus. I mean, just literally, when you look at two images, the cloud doesn't really want to be a circus, right? And the cloud wants to be a cloud. It doesn't want to be the circus. So we have two very different images, and energies and ways of being in the world. But the resolution place was a rainbow. And it was really like turning it over. Like, I don't have to shift who I am and how I'm being when my sister shows up. I can allow something else to kind of come through and shift the situation for me so that I don't have to try to contain the circus or be the circus or fit in with the circus. So I work with images, metaphor, and energies, like qualities of being. So does that answer any of your questions?
Absolutely. And I really appreciate that, because for some people, metaphor, using words to paint a picture, it's very natural to them. It's very natural for me. I speak in metaphors all the time, to the point where I think I drive my husband a little bit crazy. She's a metaphor, but whatever.
No, you don't.
But the idea of metaphors is for us to take it above the words into this imaginal space, this archetypal space. Listeners, when we're talking archetypal, we're talking that language of images that can be felt without verbalizing something. I could show you an image of a queen and anyone around the world would understand and get the energy of that queen image. That is an example of a of an archetype. An orphan would be another archetype. A king would be another archetype, things like that. And when we're looking at using metaphors, it helps us go into that feeling space, that imaginal space. And as Dr. Hermanson is helping us see, when we use it in relationships and see, I love how you use the cloud and the circus. Nobody is judging either one. We're not judging the cloud and we're not judging the circus. We're just noticing how very different those energies are. The cloud is very soft and up there and serene, and the circus is very earthly and busy and chaotic and all of this kind of mess. And so if we look at this listener's question, we might see the person who wrote in as being this, I'm seeing like a painter, this very, very lush, creative, colorful, organic energy. And then we have the accountant. I don't know what his profession is, but we have the accountant with his, pencil behind his ear and a pencil in his mouth and the old-fashioned paper spreadsheet in front of him or the computer, whatever it might be. And not one is bad.
No.
They're both fine.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, to be completely honest here, for much of my life, when I was teaching adjunct in graduate schools, I was doing accounting work as, my money making, and because you don't really make much teaching adjunct in graduate schools. And, I loved accounting. I really did. I just, so I have a nerdy part of myself that just loves getting down there and doing real detailed work like that. So yeah, no, absolutely not. There's no judging at all. It's just very different. And that's like the spaciousness to allow both, both unique, people to exist in the world together and forge a path ahead and be very different. The other thing about images and metaphoric images is that you said, I think you used beyond or higher. And it's also like it's a deeper below the surface, what's true in a way where, like we can speak truth metaphorically that we can't say in just linear words, because we have the image for it. So.
Absolutely. And I love how we're kind of veering into this space with this listener's question, because they're asking for some insights. And I think that this is such a beautiful one that you brought to the table, because it's often one that we don't think of, is seeing the partners or seeing two friends or family members. When we get into looking at the images, it's a piece when I'm working with individuals or couples, I will often go into this imaginal space of having them imagine themselves as a character in what play. It can be a known or an unknown one. And who are the characters around them, creating that, it's that metaphor for what their lived experience is. And it gives room for insight to pop in the room.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And it gets a bit playful in space.
It does. It gets, And it's amazing that, it just provides connections to happen. Like having something, because words can kind of tie us down. Like if we're really trying to think through something logically and figure it out and talk it through, we can just go so much deeper with an image. And also, one of the things that was coming to mind when you were speaking was a lot of times when I work with people and they're working and, we're looking at an issue that involves a relationship, especially like a marriage relationship, there's a tendency in the human mind to want to see the connections between things, right? That our mind wants to connect things. But there needs to be enough space for two people to be completely different, but still happily married, right? And that's what I see when I look at a healthy marriage, as I mentioned before. Like there's a spaciousness that's really important rather than trying to make things fit or, can't give an example.
I agree with you completely. I think as long as partners are aligned on their core values, like honesty, trust, integrity, transparency, whatever it is that's important to them, that as long as those parts are there, because that creates the real safety, that creates the emotional safety, that then you can let your partner be them. They can be
let the
right.
uniqueness flourish.
Absolutely. Because then that uniqueness allows each person to actually learn from the other person. Because if you're interested in your partner, you're like, oh, that's really cool about you. Tell me more. Oh, that's really cool about you. That's not a part of me. I'd like to know more about that. Or if it's something you don't want to know, you can just accept it and observe it and get a giggle out of it because it's so different from you. And I think that that is what might be missing in this partner in today's question, that it sounds like he is wanting her to give up her more right brain side, which must feel very wise to her. I know that when I'm in that space, I can feel it's different from intelligence. It's like this innate wisdom that comes up and said, this is good. This is yes kind of thing. And it sounds like she gets into that space, which is why she has the positive outcomes that she does. It doesn't sound like she's saying, oh, I'm going to spend all of our money on, well, I don't know what she would do, on a canoe and forget the house payment or apartment payment, right? And it sounds like she does make very wise decisions, and that it's more about his lack of ability and to honor that her way works for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just like kind of this openness that's required. And I mean, as we mentioned before we started today, like our whole world is really in that mode. It's hard to accept the creatives, right? It's hard to accept the people that have the wild ideas. It's hard to embrace something that's brand new that we haven't seen before. So it's deeper than this situation. It's a cultural question.
Cultural. And I remember in my doctoral program, I learned, even though in my master's program, we did a lot of work with research, but it was really pounded into me in my doctoral program that even when you're looking at research and people think, oh, there's research behind it, it has to be true. Even research, a lot of it is not based in true fact. There's bias because a drug company was paying for it, an alcohol company was paying for it, somebody was paying for it who's getting something.
Or how the question was framed. Well, yeah, absolutely.
And that we all, even if we are really trying hard to bracket our bias, we all have a certain amount of bias. Some of it's very overt, some not so much. But so when we think of the husband and his very logical left brain approach, and he's might be relying on the research and this and that, research isn't always what it's up to be. And I think the same with, again, kind of hitting it again, the same with all of this, it must be rational. Because then we're taking, as you talk about, and I'm going to throw the ball back to you, you talk about this whole other realm beyond the left brain. Could you just talk a little bit more about what that is for you? How to access this?
Yeah, the way I didn't mention this, but my path, I got my PhD in education learning at University of Chicago. And I was really always interested in how we learn. And I was pursuing this question. I was interviewing for a teaching position at Meridian University. And the president of the school said, well, rather than try to fit you into our program, why don't you tell me, what would you like to teach? And the word metaphor was spoken through me. I didn't say metaphor. I didn't know anything about metaphor. He said, great, we'll call it the psychology of metaphor. And it was just this whole spiritual path of like books showing up and, just synchronistic experiences. Like I was being given a path to take. And I had a visionary experience where I was shown the field, and I won't go into the details of it. It's in my last book. But the way that I work with people and what happens is images will just spontaneously arise in a session. And there's no complicated thing to get there at all. There's no process. There's no steps. There's no procedure. There's no, putting on the white lab coat, kind of anything, like no lighting a candle, no sage, nothing. Like it's just boom, there's an image. So these images will spontaneously appear, and they're metaphoric images, meaning there's qualities to them. So there'll be like the tractor in the field or a sun. And, so the mind is very bored. This is always stuck in my mind. This is probably like 15 years ago, but I was doing a workshop and somebody got an image of a waterfall and they were so disappointed. They were so disappointed. But if you go into the qualities of being a waterfall, I mean, what is more life-giving than being a waterfall? What is more joyful? What is more full of life? What is more like alive than a waterfall? So our mind has to stop the judgment and feel the shift of being a waterfall. And that, how we're being is everything. Like the right hemisphere is really who we're being in the world, what the qualities we're holding. And so the images that will show up are a shift of being for the person. And it's, I don't know. I wish I am working on a training manual right now, so we'll see. But really, like, they just happen spontaneously. They just come in spontaneously. Sometimes I'll work with somebody and they think that they need to create an image. They need to say what the image is that they want to work with. And so when we do that, though, or when somebody does that, I can tell it because there's a deadness to it. I can't get into it. I can't feel it myself. But when images spontaneously arise from the field, I can step into it. I can feel it and wow, it feels great to be a waterfall, or it feels great to be a skyscraper. It feels really good to be a little baby duck. Feel how good it feels. Like it just feels good to my body when I'm working with somebody. So then I know that the image is coming from the field rather than from their thinking. And the people now it's been years since somebody's come in and tried to think that they're the one in charge of the image. They have to realize, nope, they're not in charge. Something else is going to come in here and I have no idea what it is. So did any of that answer your question?
It did. And it really resonates with me. And I think it's so important just to pause here and talk about these images, that they're not just for psychologists. They're not just for special people. They are for all of us. Because when we stop, as you're talking about, when we stop judging with that left brain, with the prefrontal cortex part of the mind that's going to, say, oh, it needs to be logical to fit in. As kiddos, we all have this power. We daydream, we imagine things, elves and fairies and
like we're happy looking at clouds and seeing the images in the clouds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And we draw and we do all of these magical things. We are instructed over time. Oh, don't daydream. Come on, get up, get your chores done. Oh, stop painting that. Come on, that's not a real thing. Go do your homework. And so we learn over time to suppress these images, and then they don't come. They're not knocking at our door as much, just like our dreams. When we welcome our dreams and honor our dreams, again, they're from the imaginal world. They're coming. And if we learn to pay attention to them and honor them, more of them come. And so I think it's a perfect opportunity to let our listeners know that if you're working with something and you're not getting, I work with images a lot with my clients, where somebody will be talking and I'll get an image. Like they'll be talking about their boss and wow, this image of this, I've never met this, but this image comes in. Maybe a tormentor or whatever it is, or, a person with big armor on, who knows what it's going to be, but I don't create that. It just comes in. And that's because of being receptive to it, doing the work to not dismantle the logical mind, but to make space for the instinct, make space for that creative side, who also come and offer information.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with the book, Ian McGilchrist's work on the hemispheres, but he wrote a book, it's a huge book. It's probably 800 or 900 pages. And it wasn't recently. It's probably been out for 10 years or so, but he talks about how the title of the book is The Master and His Emissary, and that the left hemisphere actually needs to be the emissary and the right hemisphere be the master in our world. Because our left hemisphere, as you said, I love accounting. Like I love things that are clean and neat and linear. I love it myself. But it needs to be the servant of my bigger creative, more connected, visionary, the part of me that's the right hemisphere is the one that connects to higher wisdom and higher vision. So it needs to be the servant of that part of me rather than the in charge part of me.
So beautifully, beautifully said, Dr. Hermanson. I love that way of looking at it. And again, back to our listener's question, the individual who's wanting, an answer of how can I take this to my partner? And I think that this is, a lovely avenue to, although it sounds like the partner's going to balk and say, no, the logic is the power, but being able to honor that belief in him, if that's his belief and he's not yet ready to make space for something else, she can then say, I'm honoring your way of being. I'm honoring your logic. And please, I would like you to honor my way of being, my sense of tuning into my higher wisdom, my inner wisdom. And it works for me. So can we just honor each other's way of being and see it, using those images again of the beautiful painter and then the cute little accountant doing his thing. And I too, I agree with you. It's so interesting. Even I've never given up reconciling my checkbook by hand. I love the sheer beauty of it. The numbers match up. If you're off $5, a penny, whatever it is, it has. So there's something satisfying out that logical brain, even though a penny or $5 is not going to harm anything if I let it go. But there is that part of us that can really want that exactness. It can feel
it does feel satisfying. It feels very satisfying. And we need the precision. If you're building a rocket to go to space, things can't be off by, a quarter inch. They need to be precise. So they're the sort of more masculine building energy of our world is very important. It's just that it's overshadowed the softer, creative, intuitive parts. Yeah. So.
And thank you for bringing that up because it's a really good point as we begin to wind down of looking at that masculine energy and the feminine energy. We're not talking men only have masculine and women only have feminine. We each want to be working on our masculine energy and our feminine energy so that they are in balance, because the masculine is about doing and success in the world, and the feminine is the nurturing and the creativity. And if we each as individuals work on getting both of those, listeners, I hope this makes sense. It's in my book, also, Joy from Fear. It's an old concept. Carl Jung was a master at it. And when we honor this, we can see that this couple is actually, the more I see about it through the lens you just brought up, Dr. Hermanson, this beautiful uniting where we have this logical side, this man, and if he can bring in maybe a little more creative energy into his realm, and his partner already sounds like she uses some logic, but maybe giving him a nod of logic so that it feels safer to him, it allows us to not pursue the perfection of precision and the perceived perfection of logic, and make room for that really beautiful imperfectness that is human life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the way you said that, and the space for those differences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you have given us so much richness today, and I'm so grateful that you reminded me and the audience, the listeners, about that power of the imaginal world, our imagination, our creativity, our intuition. It is good, it is valuable, and in, using your terminology, maybe we can put the logical mind in service of that rather than it being either ignored or overly lopsided to where we discount the beautiful gifts of higher knowing, creativity, intuition.
Sounds good to me. That's the world I want to live in. That's my world I want to live in. So
and I think that when we model this for other people. I know I model it for my clients. It sounds like you very much model it for your clients, for your students, for your workshops. And you are helping. And that's, I believe, our job as individuals, regardless of our gender, modeling this, the importance of this creative space, because there is so much wisdom that may indeed save our world. Because
Absolutely.
the logical mind left on its own does some pretty illogical things.
Yeah. I mean, the way I've been saying it is that if our linear mind, logical mind was capable of creating a better world, it would have already done it. It's the part of this that's connected that we need to be more connected to and to be listening to, because that's what's going to take us into a better life individually and better world, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, absolutely. I think when we think about it as, for any parents listening, realizing that you can do this with your kiddos just by modeling for them the importance of creativity, of tuning into their instinct, tuning into the imaginal world, and letting them create, letting your kiddos, whatever age they are, honoring the importance. Because you think about nature, and nature is so healing and so powerful. And there is so much, I mean, nature is the creative force. It is it is
such a teacher.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
And the source of many images that, come to us. Just touching upon just one last piece, when you were talking about the images from nature, I also use neurolinguistics in my work. And when somebody's using the word, I'm overwhelmed, or the phrase, I'm overwhelmed, well, I will say, just pause. And if you feel safe closing your eyes, close your eyes and give me an image from nature that comes when I'm overwhelmed. And invariably, people will come up with something like a tsunami, a huge rainstorm, an avalanche is another one. I say, so, okay. And how do you feel? Oh my God, I can't get out. I'm covered. I'm okay. So let's shift words and go from I am overwhelmed to something like I feel challenged. And then I'll say, now close your eyes. What image comes to mind? And people say, oh, well, I'm climbing up a kind of difficult path, but I can do that. Oh, I'm crossing a bridge. It's a little scary, but I can get to the other side. And so when we see that, even in cases like that, the power of images to change the underlying programming of I am overwhelmed, which makes us feel down and suffocated and I'm challenged. I'm feeling challenged, but I can do this. And again, through the power, there's nothing, linear there. It is all very much feeling into it with your own creative force of what words can I choose to make myself feel more empowered. And when we look at this listener who's, likely going to take this back and talk to her significant other, it's like, what images can she take to him? What words to help honor him and actually encourage him to really deeply honor her?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. There's a couple things I thought of when you were, and I know we're getting to the end here, so I'm not going to extend this too much. But when I work with clients and they're overwhelmed. So yeah, overwhelmed could be tsunami or whatever, getting lost in the sea, drowning, having whatever, that could go on and on there. But if we open up space, the fields will bring in an image that's the shift place. So when you were talking about overwhelm, I thought you were going to say that the client said, I'm a tree, and trees are like grounded and rooted and strong. And, the wind could, like a gale force wind could push on a tree and not knock it over. So like there's a shift of being that even takes us out of the overwhelm and trying to manage overwhelm into a whole other place. That's the shift of being, if that makes sense. So
it makes perfect sense. And I love that as a way of, rather than changing the verbiage, using it as an alternative way of, okay, well, how could you be in that place and be this nice rooted.
Yeah, because our mind is the one that creates the story. And I do that all the time. Like the last few months, I've been feeling so overwhelmed. I've had a lot going on. So I need to listen to this myself. But yeah, like I'll go into overwhelm, but there's another place that is not overwhelmed. And that's the place we need to go to. So
that's the place to tap into. And just like our listener, sounds like they might be in a place of frustration, not being seen, not being valued.
right.
This idea of, okay, what images, what feelings could you create that are going to give you that power in that sense? Sounds like she's like right there. She knows the way that she knows how to access this, and she knows it's valuable. Now it's just about her getting more rooted in, yeah, this is my way of being and it's good.
Love
and
it.
For me.
Yeah.
Different from my partners.
Yeah,
and
different. Mm-hmm.
And then maybe they can find some balance there. Two different trees holding hands.
Two different trees. Yeah. I mean,
honoring each other.
I'm actually seeing her as a tree. Whoever you are out there, I'm seeing you as a tree. Your partner can be something different. He can be a large wild cat, or he could be a sun or whatever. It doesn't need to be, you don't even need to be in the same forest, but just honor your partner's uniqueness, honor and stand rooted and strong in your uniqueness. That's what I would say. And I am seeing her as a tree, so.
That's so lovely. Well, Dr. Hermanson, I know you've written 3 books. Those will be in the show notes for listeners to find. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about where they can access you and connect with you?
Sure. I would just say go to my website, kimhermanson.com, and whatever current program is happening, you'll find it there. And I also have some digital courses in addition to my books. So, yeah.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your wisdom, your energy with us today. I'm truly grateful.
Thank you. It was really fun. I love talking about images. I could do it all day. So
it was very fun. It was very fun. And to our listeners, thank you so much for sharing your time, your energy, and your journeys with me. And this is Imperfect Love. Thanks so much for sharing your time with me today. Remember, you have the power to transform your life and love fearlessly, if imperfectly, and it's my privilege to help you along the way. You can find more life-changing content, including my books and other podcast episodes, at drcarlamanley.com. Feel free to submit your own confidential questions through my website. I'll do my very best to include your issue on a future episode. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. Until we connect again, this is Dr. Carla Marie Manley wishing you oceans of blessings and love. Please note, this podcast is psychoeducational in nature and is not intended to replace formal mental health support. Please contact your healthcare provider or emergency hotline if you need psychiatric care. And, as always, please take good care of your amazing, wonderful self.